Welcome to the Good Divorce Show, where we can help you learn how to navigate the journey of divorce with less conflict, less debt, and equip you not to just get divorced, but also learn how to be divorced. Your host, certified divorce coach Karen McNenny, shares her wealth of knowledge, gets advice from other relationship experts, and interviews couples who learn how to have a good divorce, so you can too. Now here's your host, Karen.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to the Good Divorce Show. I am your good divorce coach, Karen McNenny. And today is a rare experience. And, after 40 episodes of the show, it only seems fair and appropriate that I bring a little more of my own story and my own journey of divorce, which many of you who have been listening know that I am a survivor of a good divorce. And so with me today, I have my daughter, Sophia. Hi.
Hi, glad to be here.
Welcome to the show. This was not premeditated from the beginning of the show, but I've always wondered in the back of my mind whether or not our own family would talk a little bit about our story and the journey. And there's been so many guests that have come on the show who have really graciously shared their personal, precious, private story. Of course, we only highlight the good stuff here, because we want to remind people and create an illustrative story that divorce doesn't have to be destructive and full of despair. And I now have proof, as my 18-year-old daughter sits here. She's not in jail. She's made it to college. She's gainfully employed, and she has a smile on her face. Congratulations on surviving as a child of divorce, Sophia.
Thanks, Mom. We're thriving for sure.
You say that in that sort of sarcastic way, but I would say, as your parent, that you and your brother are both very much thriving, and your father and I are very proud. So take us back in time to what you do remember, even of the core. Well, okay, maybe we should first do the setup. Dad and I met. We were set up on a blind date.
Mm-hmm.
5 months later, we got engaged. 4 months later, we were married. 9 months later, we conceived you. And then, of course, you came into the world 9 months after that. And then when you were 9 months old, we conceived your brother, Patrick. And then, of course, he showed up 9 months later.
Right.
And in total, we lived in the same house for 7 years as a family, just over 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
And this month, October 2023, marks the 12-year anniversary since our family became one family that lives across two homes,
Mm-hmm.
which pretty much marks your entire school life from first grade through 12th grade.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So that's the lead up. What do you remember of the family and the family home and the four of us together? Let's just start there.
Yeah, I mean, our family home in the Rattlesnake, I remember Raymond. Obviously,
and to clarify, the Rattlesnake is the name of the valley because there's a creek that's very wiggly like a rattlesnake. We didn't actually live with rattlesnakes, for those
right.
that are
Good,
local.
Good to clarify. The Rattlesnake in Missoula. And yeah, our childhood home, my memories, obviously I still have memories of that house, but it was a long time ago. Like you said, it was just the first 7 years of my life. So, some of the specifics have gotten lost, but I remember, doing things as a family, of course, the tag along train.
Yes, we had a bike that then also had a trailer and then a bike for you. Like there was a whole bike thing. So
very connected,
really fun. We did lots of bike rides as a family. We had a big backyard.
Mm-hmm.
We adopted 2 little kittens, Sparky and Rocky.
Rocky and Sparky, who are here with us.
Still with us here today.
Still with us.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, there's not a ton of like specific memories of that house or that time, I guess. I mean, I remember, I think divorce was never something I ever really expected at that point. Like, obviously I was a kid and kind of oblivious to whatever as kids are. So it was never really an expectation that I had. So it definitely came as a surprise, but
did you have friends who were divorced? Like, did you
yeah,
understand the concept at that age, or what do you think you understood?
I think my understanding was limited. I mean, I grew that understanding and gained that understanding when you and dad got divorced. And I definitely had friends though. And there were a lot of people very close to me at that age that also had parents who were going through divorces at that time. So it wasn't necessarily foreign, but it was definitely unfamiliar.
Mm-hmm. And do you remember what you knew about those other divorces and kind of the story in your head about divorce?
My best friend in kindergarten, Shaylee, we were attached at the hip, and her parents had been divorced for as long as she could remember, I think. And I remember her dad lived in San Diego, and she lived in Missoula with her mom. And obviously, we went to the same school in the Rattlesnake. But yeah, her dad lived in San Diego, and she'd tell me about how her mom would take her to the airport, and this kindergartner would travel across the country alone to visit her dad, and they would have screaming matches, and it was a very like toxic thing in my mind. So that was kind of at least my first idea of what maybe divorce looked like.
Yeah. And we had another family friends, I'll leave them unnamed, and they also had a pretty high conflict divorce, and the parents were not very cooperative.
Mm-hmm.
And I was watching the same thing as a parent. I was watching these families that were really destructive and unhappy. And it just absolutely ripped my heart to imagine that. And I thought, I can't stay in this marriage, but I certainly cannot be enemies with your dad.
Yeah.
And I don't want my children to suffer at the hands of divorce. So we did the best we could with what we had available. And part of why I've started this podcast is to help families to know that it can look different and it can be different.
Absolutely.
So do you remember when we told you?
Yes, I definitely do. And I mean, like I said, some of the specifics get lost, but I remember you and dad sitting us down on the couch at our house, our family home, Raymond, and saying we're getting a divorce. And at that point, that word was still very like unfamiliar. I didn't know what that meant. Mm-hmm. And obviously you went on to kind of explain that the best that you could, which I don't know, maybe you remember more of the specifics of exactly what you told us at that point.
Remember every word.
Right. Well, I don't, honestly. But I know Patrick and I were just kind of surprised and confused. I remember you talking about dad moving out and this idea of two homes, and we get to have another bunk bed, so that was kind of exciting. Like there were aspects that were, it's something kind of new. It could be exciting, but it's also just kind of was confusing. And like I said before, not anything I had really expected up to that point. It came as a surprise, which I mean, I feel like I had seen conflict as like is inevitable. Like kids see that. So I had seen conflict, but it's not something that I had ever processed at that age. Mm-hmm. And that I'd ever thought about like any more complexly.
Sure. You're 6 years old.
Yeah.
And you bicker with your brother, and your mom and dad bicker.
Exactly.
You bicker with friends at school, and we try to protect you from those things, but it's inevitable, and it's part of what happens. What you might not know is that your dad and I, once we made the decision, it was weeks before we told you. Mm-hmm. Because we first told the grandparents and the aunts and uncles, and then we told the parents of all your closest friends, so that when they heard that our family was getting a divorce, that then they would be able to process that with their own children. We went to the school and spoke to the school counselor and your teacher in person. We went together. We went to the preschool where your brother was and sat down with those teachers. So we created this whole infrastructure and safety net so that if you did get wobbly or were having big feelings or were uncertain or behavior was changing in any way, the people closest to you and around you would be ready to hold you when neither of us could be there to do it with you.
Yeah. I definitely was not aware of that at the time at all, but I think you've mentioned that before. And I think that's a good support system to have. Just in case. I mean,
well, yeah, if someone had died in the family, we would have told your teacher and told family members, and that you might see Sophia having bigger feelings or outbursts or who knows what. We just wanted to be as prepared as possible. So then we also, once we did all that, then we had to sit down and tell you guys, which was a conversation I was dreading. I kind of get a little sick in my stomach. It sort of grips my heart right now. And I feel a little tearful thinking about it, because it's just not a conversation you ever want to have with your children. And I know so many of our listeners and so many parents who just dread that day. However, if you are intentional and you plan for it, it doesn't have to be such a train wreck. So your dad and I sat down and we talked about we almost like wrote a script out, like who's going to start and what are we going to say and how would we answer their questions. And then we had a little practice rehearsal, because
No way.
Of course we did.
Of course.
Right. This is an important message. If you have a really important message, you should write it out and practice it.
Definitely be thoughtful about it. Yeah.
And also as an adult, figure out how you're going to manage your emotions so that they don't just become the emotions of the child. And we were all tearful, but we sat together very snugly.
Yes.
And I think Patrick was even a little more confused of like what that meant. We could tell it was really abstract to him.
Yes, I would agree with that.
And you had mentioned the bunk bed. So one of the things that Dad and I decided is that we needed to know what the second home was going to be, where the second home was going to be, because that was going to be the first question. Like, where are we moving? What does this mean? And reminding our listeners that what it means to an adult is very different than what it means to a child. And I remember Patrick saying like, oh, I'm going to need 2 toothbrushes and 2 bottles of vitamins. Right? That's what was a big deal. So your dad had located a condominium so that he would at least have a place in the immediate interim to move to until he found a permanent home, which eventually he did. But for 6 months, he moved to what we referred to as number 9. And our family home was Raymond. Why did you call our family home Raymond?
Well, I feel like, I don't know when we adopted this idea of referring to the homes by their street names, but I think it was really when we first moved into 2 homes, because now there were 2 homes to talk about. So it wasn't just, home.
Mom's house or dad's house.
It was Raymond and number 9, or Raymond and Gilbert, or Lily and Gilbert.
That's right. And then Dad moved on to Gilbert Street, and I eventually moved to Lily. And so now we have Gilbert and Lily. And we were intentional. It just occurred to me that I didn't want the houses to feel possessive, that it was a mom's house and a dad's house, which meant the kids really didn't belong anywhere. We wanted them to belong to the 2 of you and to be identified as a family home, not a mom house and a dad house. And I still make that recommendation to my clients that I'm coaching, that these little subtle choices can really have an effect. And we never wanted you to feel like you were a guest at your mom's house or your dad's house. We wanted the home to feel like yours. The other thing, once we knew number 9 was there. Oh, well, I should ask, do you have any opinion about that now? Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, that's a different perspective. I know that's kind of what we've always done is referring to it by the street name. And I've always felt like that was a good thing for us, but I didn't really know any more of the context behind that. But I think that's
philosophy.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really great. And I think that definitely served its purpose.
And still today.
Yep. Still today.
Lily and Gilbert. So we we found a set of bunk beds that would go to the new house. And we decided that would be the transitional object, which is probably another behind the scenes process that you were unaware of, that we wanted to immediately connect something exciting and something new to look forward to in the new home. So we went and bought these bunk beds, and your dad and I kept all our money together until we were in two houses. We made the commitment that it was a shared responsibility to fully furnish and provide for our children in both homes. And that was a financial responsibility that sat on both our shoulders. So we did get these great bunk beds, and they were in the garage.
I remember this.
Yeah. What do you remember? So we had sat down and we had told you we're getting a divorce, and then
new bunk beds, and it was exciting. And we went out to the garage and we looked at them. You're like, you're going to have this new bunk bed in your new home. And it was exciting.
And you were picking the top, and there was a little desk, which you were very excited about because you've always been studious. And there was a ladder, and Patrick was excited to climb.
Mm-hmm.
And you remember your dad and I looking at each other with just like this relief that we had finally said it. Like the hard thing was over, that we could see the excitement in all of you. And I guess that's one piece that I would say to our listeners, that when you sit down and plan to do this talk, not only know how you're going to begin it, but also know how you're going to end it. Have an exit strategy. Are you going for a meal? Are you going on a walk? And our exit strategy was off to the garage to see the new bunk beds, which indeed ended up at number 9.
Mm-hmm. And then at Gilbert, we had those bunk beds for a long time.
Yeah, they stuck with you until you both outgrew them, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Well, for those just joining, I am chatting today with my daughter, Sophia, who is now 18 and has lived across 2 homes for 12 years, the entirety of her education time, and now lives on campus in a dorm and gets to be in one location all the time. So when we come back from the break, we'll hear perspective from an adult child of divorce on what transition and life in 2 homes is like. Please stay with us.
Are you thinking about getting divorced? Before you call a lawyer, call the Good Divorce Coach, Karen McNenny, a certified divorce counselor, co-parenting specialist, and mediator. Karen's signature Good Divorce experience will guide you through your divorce journey, from the day you make that difficult decision to the day the decree is signed, all for a predictable fee. The Good Divorce Coach will teach you and your partner how to get divorced and be divorced with less conflict and less debt. Visit thegooddivorcecoach.com to get in touch with Karen.
Now, back to the show with Karen.
Welcome back. I am here chatting today with my daughter, Sophia, who is now crossed over as an adult child of divorce. And she has been gracious enough to bring her story and her experience to the podcast. And I'll have to say, I'm more nervous today than I have been for any other interview, because I think it really puts me on the line. Did I practice what we preach here on the Good Divorce Show? And surely I got it wrong at least once.
At least.
At least. And, we didn't know what we were doing. So, but we always said we try to just give you the normal dose of getting screwed up by your parents, not the extra double dose by divorced parents.
Yeah, well, I think you did a pretty good job.
Okay, thanks. Just before the break, we had talked a little bit about learning about the divorce, what that meant, what it was going to mean, and then started a life from first grade, really pretty much age 7. You have lived across 2 homes until just recently when you went off to college, and you now live in one dorm room.
Yeah.
So we may come back to that. In general, what would you say to parents about transitioning and that experience for kids, and what makes it easy and what makes it hard?
I mean, it depends. That's probably a lame answer, but I think what worked best for our family is we had systems. We had the boomerang folder, and we had bins, and we had, you know, designated transition days, which started with, you know, 3 days at a time. So the week was split up, and it was always equal. It was always 50-50 with our family, which I think was important to us to have equal time. But the boomerang folder,
Yeah, talk a little bit about these systems. So, yep, the boomerang folder. I don't even know how.
You don't even know how?
Well, I think I invented it.
I think
I
that was your invention.
I'm a systems kind of girl.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I mean, we were going back and forth, and we're in school, and there's lots of things to keep track of. And the boomerang folder, and I think the name, which I believe you also coined, was, you know, just because we were kind of going back and forth like a boomerang. And that was just a way to put, like, you know, assignments or like a good report card or something to send over with the kids to the other parent, so
That's
that
right.
you were getting the necessary information from that week or whatever it might be, homework assignments. And especially when we were young, I think that was really,
and there was artwork.
Yeah.
And announcements from teachers, getting to see work. And if we were transitioning midweek, we wanted to make sure the other parent had the information they needed. And then eventually you started to decorate the boomerang folder. You made a whole cover for it, and it had the Gilbert lily and pictures. That. Yeah, I probably have it stashed away somewhere special, but it was a good system.
It was a good system. It definitely served a good purpose, you know, as young kids, especially. It would have been, I think, hard to keep track of all that ourselves. So to have this kind of little designated folder going back and forth, I think that was a good system. And we had bins, which was
big plastic bins.
Or really, it started as just one bin.
One bin. Yeah. Like you would put your Christmas decorations in, but instead it would have a baseball mitt and sparkly shoes and my
sparkly shoes and whatever. And yeah, we would pack up the bin on the transition day, and we'd take the boomerang folder and the bin, and we'd be set for the other house or whatever.
Yep. And a lot of times we would deliver the bin. You kids, when we, you know, our goal was never send you to school. I mean, for the record, the children should never be in charge of communicating between the parents. And there were times, I don't know if it happened in the other home, but you certainly called me out on more than one occasion when I'd be like, hey, so is dad blah, 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 blah. And you would just be like, sounds like a question for dad, mom.
Yeah.
Which was true.
I was certainly against the idea of being any sort of middleman, I'd say, but
and we really tried to prevent that from happening. I don't know if we succeeded.
I think you definitely did. That was not ever something I felt the burden of being a middleman per se,
or a spy
or anything like that.
Yeah, that would be damaging and a no for sure. And we would try to get your gear wherever it needed to be for you. And I used to ask this question. I don't know if you remember this, but maybe once a month over dinner or whatnot, or pillow talk after reading, like, how is life in two homes? What can we do differently? How's it going? Like we would ask the kids.
Yeah. You would.
You remember that?
Yeah. And I remember, maybe, especially in those early days, asking that question quite a bit, I feel like. And it was a good check-in. And I mean, often I don't know if there was much that we had to say, but
yeah, I remember asking you one day, like, how would you describe life in two homes?
Do you remember what I said?
Absolutely. Complicated. That was your response. You're like, it's complicated. And sometimes you don't have the thing that you want to have, but you just figure out how to be without it.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely sometimes like that. It can be complicated. And sometimes you don't have the thing that you need. But yeah. Like,
and we would try, like, if you came and said, hey, I've got this thing tomorrow, I really want my sparkly red shoes. You had a lot of sparkle rainbow going on in those early days.
I sure did.
And then as you got older and you were more in charge of your own belongings, there were more things that were important that were going with you, and to the point where you kind of just started to pack like you were going on a trip every week.
Yeah. I mean, definitely, like, in those early days and younger, we had duplicates of
Just about
everything, just about everything, like, so the only things we were needing to bring were special things like that, like your baseball mitt or your schoolwork or whatever it may be. But yeah, as I got older, there were more things that I didn't have duplicates of, just more stuff that I wanted or needed. So it did become more of a packing process. But as I got older, we also did longer stretches. So there was more time to settle in a little bit. And then as there was more packing, there was also just more time. So
right. I don't know how you felt about this, but transition days were always kind of loaded and hard for all 12 years.
Yeah. I mean, often there was, whether it be like tension or just kind of a general frustration, I feel like that could often be present, like on a transition day, just knowing like, okay, here we go again.
Yeah. Pack up your life, schlep it out. And I think in the receiving parent, I know for me, I would have gone from a stretch where I didn't cook, I didn't do laundry, I didn't clean, right? There is this bizarre
Karen the Bachelor.
Karen the Bachelorette, right?
Right.
And then, in come the children. And so I'm adjusting, you're adjusting. And there was always just like this adjustment period. And it took a while to really recognize that that's what was going on.
I would agree with that for sure.
And even once we recognized it, it would still happen. But I think we would give each other a little more space.
Yeah.
And I would just realize like it's going to take 24 hours for us to get back into the groove of this house.
Yeah.
How would you describe kind of not a specific compare contrast of your two homes, but what it's like, because obviously your father and I live differently. I think that we're very aligned in our values and our expectations and our rhythms and routines. But at the end of the day, the vibe of both houses is going to be different. And what was that like for you?
Yeah, the vibe, of course, is definitely different. And I think like you were saying, like, just taking those 24 hours or whatever it might be to just adjust and be like, okay, this is where I am now. And this is what my room looks like for the next week or two. And I'm going to settle in there. And this is how things are different or whatever. And just kind of like settling into that. Like, of course, there's differences, but it's still home. Like, they're both home. It's just like a little adjustment period.
Yeah. I also remember you once saying, like, I love both my homes and I love both my parents, but whenever I'm at one place, I'm missing the other. I'm missing the people of the other, or the dog, or the cats, or my favorite cereal. There's always something to miss. Yeah. And you talked about like going from a week to 2 weeks. And to clarify, we did start because you and Patrick were 5 and 7, really young, still in that attachment part of life. And it was hard for your dad and I to not be with you more regularly. So we did rotate like every 3 or 4 days. We tried not to do anything shorter than 3 days because it just felt like a ping pong.
Yeah.
Going back and forth. And you sometimes would communicate to us like, we need to settle in, which is then we went to a week finally. And I don't even remember when that was, maybe 3rd or 4th grade.
That sounds right. It was somewhere around that time. And we were definitely doing 1 week at a time for a good while.
A good stretch. And all through middle school. And then of course we had COVID in the midst of your childhood. So that's just a blip. And I feel like when we came out of COVID and you were heading into high school or were in high school, then you all requested for even longer stretches.
2 weeks or even a week and a half. Maybe we started with a week and a half.
Maybe so. Or maybe in the summer.
But yeah, I do remember requesting that for that exact reason of at that point, 1 week didn't quite feel long enough to fall into the rhythm, to settle in, to feel at home and get all the stuff that I was packing at this point, right? I feel like my bin kind of continued to grow.
That's right.
So my bin continued to grow. So to get kind of settled and unpacked, I desired a longer stretch for sure.
Yeah. So you could actually just be at home for a while and not feel like you were just a roving traveler.
Yes.
Packing their bags like a business person who travels every week.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that is the hardest thing. If there had been a way to not do that and put that burden on you kids. And there are some families who nest where the children have a home and the parents come and go.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, you don't know about nesting?
I've never thought about that.
Yeah. The children stay and the parents, maybe there's one other apartment or two other apartments, some other living, and it's the parents who do the shuffling around.
Wow.
Now, your father and I are terrible roommates.
Yeah.
So that would not have been successful.
I can't imagine that would have worked as well as what we did do. But that's an interesting thing that I haven't really ever thought about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you ever in the process and over the years felt embarrassed that you were a child of divorce or shame around that story?
No. I mean, like I kind of talked about before, I had a lot of friends that were also children of parents who were going through separation or divorce. So I didn't necessarily feel like the odd one out. And I never really felt embarrassed or shame by it because, I mean, you as parents always, never gave us that idea that it should be something to be embarrassed by or feel shame about. Like I never had that idea in my head from you or really from anyone else. Like I said, like a lot of my friends were just very supportive. And, I think getting in touch with all those people in my life early, like my teachers and everyone, like it didn't come as a surprise or it didn't feel like it was ever spoken about as something that should be,
Shameful.
Yeah.
Because we're actually still a pretty fabulous family. Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree.
Come
with that.
on. Okay, good. The threats are working. So as a family, your dad and I showed up a lot together, which was a commitment on our part, but I've never asked whether you noticed it or what it felt like or what you remember about your co-parent team.
Yeah. I think team is the perfect word to use. Like, from day one, I think you made that a priority for sure to be a co-parenting team. And we did do a lot of things together, whether it was birthdays or even holidays. Like Christmas was always together at one house or the other, but the four of us were always there. And that felt pretty natural. I'd say like there was definitely an effort there to like make it feel very whole, very family. But like when I think about the four of us, like as a whole, like now, like looking back, like that is just weird to me. I can't really use any other word because the reality that I grew up with was one parent or the other, and it was separate. Like, yes, it was together, and I agree with the co-parenting team. Like, it was definitely a team, but it's still obviously a separation. And so to think of like the four family together, it's just like it's weird to me.
Or even to imagine your dad and I all lovey-dovey and married and
gross, Mom.
Babies. Stop. I know. It's like even more gross than if they were married parents. It's like double dose gross.
Yeah.
And we do you remember Christmas mornings? Like, so if we were having Christmas at like the Lily house where I live, we would make you kids, we'd wake up and we'd tell Dad to come over.
And before we even went downstairs or saw the tree or opened any presents, and it would be, I'm sure, really early in the morning, and he'd just drive over to the house as soon as we were awake, or you would drive over.
That's right.
To his house.
I would go, depending on who was hosting.
Depending on who was hosting that year, and we'd wait until we were all as a family to have the Christmas morning cheer. Yeah,
that's right. In the early years, we would have Grandma and Grandpa.
Yeah,
my parents and Dad's father, and
they would all come up, and
we would have a larger family
ordeal. Yeah.
What do you remember about like parent teacher conferences?
Oh my gosh. Well, I I remember like very much co-parenting team with all aspects of school to going to parent-teacher conferences together. And then after, we would have a tradition of going to the Rattlesnake Market and getting chocolate chip cookies or whatever. And that was always the four of us very much together.
We celebrate your good grades and the two of you. And we always wanted to make sure as a family that your parents were there every baseball game, choir concert, cross country meet, side by side. We really didn't want to put you in a position where you had to look up in the stands and see us at opposite ends of the world, unable to sit next to each other. That just seemed unfair. But I don't know, maybe it was more weird for you that we were always together for those parenting moments.
I don't think I've put a whole bunch of thought towards that specifically because it was just kind of the norm to see you both sitting at the choir concert or, like that's what we were accustomed to. And I think seeing you maybe at opposite ends of the stadium, it maybe if that was the norm, I would feel the same about it. But that's not how it was. It was always together.
We love our children more than we ever disliked each other. And it was very easy to celebrate you and be together in celebration of you in all those settings. And I'm really proud of that.
Yeah, you should be.
Oh, thank you. Well, we'll be back with the co-parent report card coming in today from my daughter, Sophia, who has just launched at 18 and off to college and reflecting a little bit on her experience of growing up in a family of divorce, one family across two homes. Stay with us.
Are you thinking about getting divorced? Before you call a lawyer, call the Good Divorce Coach, Karen McNenny, a certified divorce counselor, co-parenting specialist, and mediator. Karen's signature Good Divorce experience will guide you through your divorce journey, from the day you make that difficult decision to the day the decree is signed, all for a predictable fee. The Good Divorce Coach will teach you and your partner how to get divorced and be divorced with less conflict and less debt. Visit thegooddivorcecoach.com to get in touch with Karen.
Now, back to the show with Karen.
Hello, listeners. Thanks for staying with me today. I am Karen McNenny, your Good Divorce Coach. And today I have a total VIP guest joining me, my daughter, Sophia, who is just coming up on 12 years of being a child of divorce, has spent her entire elementary and high school education years living across two homes and has just launched at 18 off to college. Thanks for joining me today, Sophia.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, it's really precious for you to share your journey. And your journey wasn't just yours alone. It belonged to you and your brother. And we were always grateful that Patrick came along so that you wouldn't have to be on this journey alone. How do you think the divorce has impacted and influenced the relationship you have with your sibling, who, by the way, is just, 21 months, 18 months?
18 months, almost exactly.
You would think I would know.
Right.
Exactly 18 months younger than you. Not the kind of thing you do on purpose, but that's how it went. So,
yeah, Patrick and I are not only really close in age, but we're just really close. And I think what has really fostered that relationship is part of that is the fact that we spent more time with each other than we did our respective parents, because, we spent half the time at one house and half the time at the other, but we spent 100% of the time together.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it was never really something that we would talk about a lot. I don't think it was ever like a pressing discussion, but if we did have anything that we needed to talk about we had each other,
Mm-hmm. And still today very much have each other. I know he misses you now that you've gone off to college.
Yeah.
Yeah. And your dad and I both come from big families and have had a sweet and sour relationships with our own siblings, but generally really tight family bonds, and have really emphasized from a young age with both of you the importance of caring for your sibling and knowing that that is a primary and important relationship.
Absolutely.
I remember one day I was making dinner and I think I was slicing tomatoes to put on Patrick's sandwich, and you stopped me and you're like, Patrick doesn't like tomatoes. I'm like, what do you mean? When did that happen? And you were really adamant, and you were totally correct. And I was horrified because you had more information about your brother than I did as his mom. And that was a little bit of an ouch in my heart.
Mm-hmm. I can imagine.
And I'm guessing that today the two of you probably have more information about each other than your parents.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. We definitely have a very close tie.
Now, something else that certainly can begin to happen in divorced families is that these single adult parents might start dating other individuals. And then there might even be blended families or cohabitation. Assume you're talking to a stranger. How would you describe that dynamic and that part of your life growing up?
I think both you and Dad were very private about that part of your life for a long time, and still are in a way. And obviously you're allowed some of that privacy. And I think like we've never had a situation where like step parents or step siblings have necessarily been like a pressing question, but obviously there's been people in both of your lives that have been very present in both Patrick and our lives as well. But for me, that, I mean, obviously it's interesting in the sense that I'd see, you know, my friends' families, and it definitely didn't look the same, but it was never too weird, just because in my mind, I think of you each as single adults, you know, like there's that separation. It was never the two of you together, it was the two of you apart. So to see you with other people wasn't necessarily super upsetting or anything like that. And I also think you tended to kind of keep things very private, especially in the beginnings of new relationships, until you had some idea that maybe this was going to be an important person in your life, and then maybe you'd bring that person into our lives, which I think was definitely like a respectful thing to do, especially when we're younger. Like kids can get attached easily and can have very conflicted and confusing feelings about that kind of stuff.
I'm so glad that you see that now. That is precisely what we intended to do. In fact, we wrote it into our parenting plan.
You had a parenting plan?
Oh, yes.
A written parenting plan?
Oh, gosh, this is a big reveal. Everyone with children
this
has to have a parenting plan that talks about.
Am I allowed to read this written parenting plan?
Oh, yeah, you could see it. The great thing, right, in a good divorce is you have a parenting plan, and it outlines how things will be paid for and what the schedule will be and who gets alternating holidays. And
right.
I mean, it's very rigorous. And one part of our parenting plan did say that no new partner shall be introduced to the children before 6 months.
6 months
of the relationship being kind of like intact.
Right. Established.
That's the word, established.
Yeah.
So that there wouldn't be a swinging door of people coming in and out of your lives. And we were so protective of it. But a really great parenting plan, or I should say a really good divorce, is the one where you never have to refer to your parenting plan again. They exist when parents get in high conflict and they start to fight over their children, or they can't agree.
Right.
Obviously, things change with age, right? When you were 8, you didn't want a tattoo, but now that you're 18, you do. Now we don't get to vote. Do whatever you want. The hope is that you will continue to be collaborative, cooperative parents in the same way as if you were under one roof. And if you're in disagreement about something, you go into a private space, you debate it out, and you come back as a unified team. And I think your dad and I have been, fortunately, and this was a part of our marriage, we were always very unified and very aligned around how to raise our children, expectations of you in the home, our hopes and dreams for you, how we want you to show up in the world, and the kind of people that we want you to be, to the point where I don't think you and Patrick ever could have like turned us against each other. Like there was no triangulation.
Yeah, no, you very, very, very aligned in so many ways. I would agree with that. It was very much a team effort.
hmm Do you remember sit down conversations? I mean, even Dad and I mean, we will regularly send a message and like, hey, want to circle up on the kids and check in, which might be, I mean, now like work related stuff or college, or there might have been consequences and some disciplining going on. And we always wanted that to be consistent across both homes. So even if someone had lost the privilege of their phone at one house, and that transition, if that were still intact, then that was still going to be honored at the other house as well.
And I think you definitely seem to align on a lot of those things. But even if you didn't, I feel like there was still a compromise that was able to be met, because whatever you were relaying to Patrick and I, it was very much the same page.
Oh, and I think the world of your father. I think he's a great co-parent. I always have. He's a wonderful influence. I never have had to worry about the care that you were receiving. Fruit Loops, that's another story. But and just in the same way that we had different strengths while we were married, right? Like I might be more academically focused and he might be more recreational focused, or, we're a ski family because your dad is a ski
fiend
and making sure those things happen. Like we each came into our strengths and allowed each other to still play to our strengths and then respect that in each other.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, good job agreeing with that. So now that you have landed in one place and you're launching into your adult world, what is the, if you will, the shadow effect or the echo of divorce in your life, if you even have any perspective of that yet?
Like you said, I'm fresh into college, a freshman at the University of Montana. So it's all very new still, but I've had a good month and a half at this point to be living on campus in the dorms in one place, which has been a bit of a relief to just kind of really nest.
Oh, I bet.
For what feels like the first time.
So now that you're in one place and you're nesting, does that feel significantly different or important, or is it even noticeable?
Like you said, I'm a freshman at the university, and I'm new to college and new to the dorms, but really new to living in one place, which has been wonderful to kind of nest and really get settled in a more permanent way. You kind of asked about like the shadow of divorce in my life and the effect of that living on campus and in one place. And I definitely feel it a little less because I'm not living at home. And I feel like that's a big part of it, is the back and forth. And I'm seeing less of both of you now.
Right. But you are still seeing
But I'm
both
still
of us,
seeing both of you, and I'm still visiting both houses.
That's
and
right.
I'll go home, and I've spent a night, come home for the weekend at your house, or maybe I'll spend it with Dad. So I definitely still get the best of both worlds.
And we would want that for you. We've always wanted to be sure that you had strong relationships with each of your parents, because we know that's best for the child. And to do our best to not show our irritation or frustrations with the other parent, which happens even in married homes. But, there's a sensitivity, and a lot of people carry anger around the divorce.
Yeah.
Oh, got all sorts of opinions about that. You can listen to the other 40 episodes.
I think you both have very clearly made an effort to not put that on to Patrick and I. But obviously, there's been instances where both of you have slipped up, and obviously there are going to be times where you are talking about the other parent and you have opinions, like you said, you have whatever, but it's never been to any extent that I feel like that's negatively impacted my view of either parent.
Oh, that's great to hear, because you are made of both of us.
Exactly.
So when we insult the other parent, we insult a part of our child. And we just adore you and Patrick and think you are exquisite humans. And that is because of not just your two parents, but everyone who has influenced your life.
Mm-hmm.
And we would never want to detract from the influence of your other primary parent. So as you look back on your family and now as you move into your adulthood, what would you change?
Not a thing. Well, because, I mean, if there was some alternate universe where you stayed married, I don't think that was ever the path for us. And I think that the way that things worked out was for a reason. Obviously, you and Dad had to meet. You had to have Patrick and I.
From
we
love.
exist because of that.
Yes.
And I think that our family is better and stronger because of the divorce. Well, okay. I wouldn't change a thing because obviously it's a part of me, it's a part of all of us, it's a part of our story, it's a part of our family, and I think that obviously ultimately that's something that has served a positive purpose, and that we were able to move away from potential toxicity or turmoil. And if you had stayed in a marriage that wasn't working, that we would be in a very different place today, obviously. So
yeah, well, I agree. And I remember the mantra so often is stay for the kids, stay for the kids. And one day I was just so wound up and angry and upset and unhappy. And I was taking it out on you and Patrick. And I just stopped in my tracks and I thought, I think I need to leave for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I think both your father and I are happier, more vibrant individuals living across two homes and raising our children in the spirit of love and cohesiveness. And we are a good family. We are still very much a family. We just renovated our family into a different kind of structure.
Absolutely.
Than what most of us consider the only way to bring happiness and joy and a thriving, loving environment to kids. There's more than one way to do it.
I agree.
Yeah. I'm so proud of you, Sophia. And you have just made a beautiful launch into your adult life and absolutely hold you up as a poster child of a good divorce experience. And I, of course, I hope it continues for you. And I will forever be sorry that you had to pack up and schlep your shit as often as you did. And I am also relieved that that part of your story is done, but that you're still connected to both of us in your own unique way.
Yeah, I think it was a small price to pay.
Well, listeners, straight from the heart today in the Good Divorce Show, bringing my own divorce story through the eyes of my daughter, Sophia. I could not be more grateful that she has joined me in this discussion. And I hope that you will join me again for our next episode. And remember, everything will be okay in the end. Say it with me, Sophia.
And if it's not okay, it's not the end.
Thanks for listening. Do you have questions or thoughts about this week's episode? Let us know by following the Good Divorce Coach on Facebook and Instagram @Good Divorce Coach. And leave a comment. And be sure to tune in every Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific or listen anytime wherever you get your podcasts.